Hello YouTube and welcome to another video. Before we get started, I would like to say something. Alright, so currently I have a friend. See, I'm not very good with technology and stuff. Well, I'm not good with designing things on technology. I have a friend, her name is Charisse, and she is currently working on a logo for my page, so that way, you know, it isn't just my face. And I am working on a name. If you guys have any ideas, please let me know. I just haven't really thought of a name for the channel. But anyway, that I just wanted y'all to know that, because in about 1 or 2 weeks the logo and the name might change. So anyway, so what today's video is going to be about, and I'm not going to go on a tangent, well, I am going to go on a tangent. It's me we're talking about. I'm not going to go, and only rant. I am going to teach y'all as well. In this video, I would like to say something, and it's something that, that I see in a lot of youth, especially high schoolers, or people who graduate high school, or people who are going to college. People view fear as a weakness. I'm not talking about people viewing your fear as a weakness. I'm talking about you veering. Listen to me, not being able to speak English. You viewing your own fear as weakness. Your fear doesn't make you weak. Now, obviously we know there are millions of different phobias and fears. Interestingly, there's something called cheerophobia. There literally is an irrational fear of fun or joy. There are people out there that are afraid to be happy or afraid to do fun things. There are people who are unnecessarily afraid of clowns. There are some people who are unnecessarily afraid of success. Yes. We all know the fear of failure. We all feel that, but there are people who are afraid to succeed. So there are many different things out there that scare us a lot. And we view that as a weakness, but it's not a weakness. You're not weak just because you're afraid of something. We're all afraid of something. There is not a single man on earth that doesn't fear something. For some people, it's God. For some people, it's clowns. For some people, it's heights. For moi, it's spiders. Okay? I am terrified of spiders. When I see a spider, I will not go near it even to kill it. Okay? I don't like spiders. There's only one spider I have ever tolerated, and it is... There used to be a little spider right above the sink where I wash dishes. The only reason this spider was friends with me was because we made a deal. Okay? While I'm washing dishes, it doesn't move. As long as it doesn't move, we're fine. When I walk away, it is free to do whatever it wants. Just whenever I walk back, it better be in its spot and not moving. That spider's gone now. Kind of broke our deal. Anyway. So even I'm afraid of something. Everybody is afraid of something. So if you think that, oh well, I can't show that this scares me because they might think that I'm weak. No. Express your fear. First of all, because if you don't, you can get hurt, or put yourself in a dangerous situation, or put yourself in an uncomfortable situation. You're not going to enjoy it if you're only doing it for other people. But that brings me to my next point, though, is we need to learn to not be afraid. Not because it makes us weak, but because most of the things that scare us are amazing things. For instance, for all of us guys, there's always that one, we all have a girl that we would love to talk to or that we would love to ask out. Our only problem is that we're scared to do it. Well, the thing is if we get over that fear and ask her out, hey, guess what? A really good thing could come out of it. Or some people are scared to go skydiving. And from what I've heard, it's a very fun and adrenaline rushing experience, and it's like nothing you've ever seen. The fear of heights. My girlfriend had a fear of heights. So much that she only went on one very tall ride with me at Splashtown. And it took me 30 minutes to get her up those stairs, because every 2 steps she would be afraid, and I'd be like, it's okay. And she wound up having fun. She loved the ride. And that's a perfect example of my point. The greatest feelings, the greatest things on earth are behind fear. Fear keeps us from experiencing the greatest things in life. So there are some things we don't need to be afraid of, because if we weren't afraid of them, we would be enjoying them. But this is not to say that fear is a bad thing. Fear is also a good thing. Fear keeps us safe. For instance, there are logical fears, things that you should be afraid of. For instance, you should, I say should because there are some people out there that don't have common sense. You should be afraid to light yourself on fire, because you don't want to burn to death. You should be afraid to go into that shady part of town, because because it's probably not safe. You should be afraid of I guess the point I'm trying to get at is there are things out there that you should be afraid of, not because you know, how do I word this right? There are things out there you should be afraid of because it keeps you safe. That's why fear's in us. That's why we develop the sense of fear, is to put a signal in our brains that says, hey, this isn't safe, we shouldn't do this. Like, for instance, people say it is an illogical fear to fly in a plane, but the thing is that we weren't made to fly. So when we get on a plane and we're flying and we're 30,000 feet in the air, our brain is looking down at the clouds that we're flying over, and it's thinking, we weren't designed to do this, we should not be doing this. So fear is not a bad thing. There are some things we should be afraid of, and there are some things we shouldn't. Like, you shouldn't be afraid to be happy. You should be afraid of your kid falling down the stairs. You shouldn't be afraid to ask that girl out. You should be afraid of that girl's dad. I'm not even joking. You should. Especially whenever they're quiet. If their dad doesn't talk, that means you really should be afraid. But seriously, the reason why I chose fear as the subject is because we live in a world where everybody's afraid of something. And it's either keeping them from doing the things that they want to do, or it drives them to do things that don't make them happy. Like, there are people afraid to succeed. There are literal people who are afraid to succeed. And then most of these people are afraid to succeed due to trauma. They're afraid. Basically, people who are afraid of success are afraid that once they succeed in their dream, one or two things are going to happen. Either one, now they actually have something to lose. They have more to lose than they've ever had to lose before. So that's a frightening thing, because now the risk is higher. But the second is the main reason. Some people are afraid to succeed because they're afraid that once they succeed in what they do, they won't have a purpose anymore. Like some people want to win an award, but they're afraid to win that award because they're like, well, after I win this, then what's the point of life after that? There are people afraid to have joy. Now this is purely caused by trauma. There are people who were traumatized as young kids. Every time that they expressed happiness, their parents would abuse them, or someone would abuse them, or someone would tell them that they shouldn't be happy about that. And it instills in their brain that happiness is a bad thing. So anytime that they experience joy, they immediately get scared. These are the kinds of fears that we shouldn't have. And it's sad that we live in a world where people are afraid of that. We live in a world where, and I speak for both, because I have common sense. We live in a world where women are afraid of getting raped. Women and men. We live in a world where rape is something that we're all afraid of. But at the same time, we live in a world where men are afraid to approach that woman, or afraid to ask that girl out, or afraid to do something with that girl, because now we live in a society where if a girl just says something, people believe them. Women, let me tell you something, women have the power to destroy your life. If a man spreads a rumor about a woman, it doesn't matter. But if a woman spreads a rumor about a man, guess what? Everybody knows. And don't worry, I'm not speaking anti-females here. Don't worry. But we live in a world where men are afraid of women and women are afraid of men. It's not how things should be. It's not. A man shouldn't be afraid of the consequences of walking up to a girl he finds attractive and maybe, he hit on her. I mean, as long as they're doing it respectfully. But at the same time, we shouldn't live in a world where women should be afraid of every guy that approaches them. We shouldn't live in a world where everyone is afraid of each other. When I was growing up as a kid, I lived in a neighborhood where every day you turn on the 6 o'clock news right before going to school, and one of my neighbors was dead. Death was a fear for me for a long time. I lived in a neighborhood where everybody was afraid of getting killed, because that's the kind of world we were living in. And it's sad that we live in a world like that, where kids still, even today, kids still have to fear that. Where kids have to fear death. Where kids are forced to understand the concept of death. Do you know how traumatizing it is for an 8-year-old kid to have to be told and explained firsthand what death is? Or to see a real dead body, or to be told that one of their friends is dead. That's the world we live in. We shouldn't be living in that world, though. Fear is the main thing that dominates our society, to the point where people either don't achieve their dreams or they don't achieve happiness. So number one, don't be afraid to express your fear. If you have a fear of something, tell your friends and family. but also try to work past that fear, because believe me, there are a lot of good things waiting for you beyond that fear. If you're afraid to do something, try and give it a go, and I promise you, it's probably going to be a really good experience. Or maybe it's not your cup of tea, and that's fine. Just don't let fear control your life. And we need to find some solution to this whole everyone's afraid of everybody thing, dude, where everybody's so scared of each other that I'm a person who loves talking to people. I will walk up to a stranger and have a 15-minute conversation. Why is it that it's only in Hot Topic or GameStop or Vans Off the Wall that I can do this? Anywhere else, no one wants to do this because people are afraid to talk to one another. They're afraid to talk to someone that they don't know, whether it's a man or a woman. Why? Why do we live in that kind of world? It used to be people would meet, you would walk into a mall or you would walk into a shop. Two people will be looking at something that they both like and they have a conversation. But nowadays people are too afraid to talk to each other because we're afraid of who might that person be. We shouldn't live in a world like that. That's why every time someone tells me stranger danger, whenever someone tells me, hey Michael, you know it's weird that you just now talked to that stranger that you don't know? It's not weird. It's perfectly natural. That's how you make friends. And we just had a really enjoyable conversation. What is so wrong about that? I've always obviously, be wary of strangers. But don't be afraid to talk to someone. If you're in GameStop and you and someone else are looking at the same video game, maybe strike up a conversation. We shouldn't live in a world like that. Fear is both good and bad. Fear controls us, but it also keeps us safe. We need to realize what fears we have that keep us safe and what fears we have that are really just controlling our life. That's a process in and of itself. That's a lot of self-reflection. That's a lot of courage to muster. But we shouldn't be afraid of anything, and we especially should not be afraid to acknowledge that we're afraid, because there are people who, when they get scared of something, they instead hide it by trying to act all big and bad and, oh, this doesn't scare me. No, you're making it way more obvious to us that it scares you. Just tell us that it scares you. That's all you have to do. People are afraid to admit their fears. People are afraid of each other. People are afraid. And we shouldn't live in a world like that. Remember what I said, that I'm taking my channel in a direction where I can teach and call out to the youth of the world. I mean, now, if you're a full-grown adult and you follow me because, you'd like what I say, good. If this touches you, if anything I ever say touches you, no matter how old you are, on some level, I'm very happy about that. But we have teenagers, we have children growing up with fear, and we need to help them not only not be afraid to tell us about their fears, but overcome their fears. Because once we do that, we can all go back to being the society that we all want, where everybody's talking to each other. No one's afraid. Men aren't afraid to go and maybe ask that pretty girl out. And we can go back to that society where women are no longer afraid of of this random guy approaching them. We can go back to that. But it all starts with getting rid of, not getting rid of fear, but not letting it control us, not letting it control our relationships, what we do with our lives, and what we do as a society. So, fear isn't good or bad, and it's not a weakness. We need to acknowledge our fears. We need to try to overcome our fears, so that way we can lead better lives. We can lead greater lives and show our true potential. That is all for today's video, and I will see you all in the next one.